Hey, what's going on everyone? EnteRChazmaN here. Once again, I'm here bringing you guys another anime summary / review for the anime Dragon Ball. And this, for the final time, I'm going to be covering the last chapter within Dragon Ball, the Piccolo Jr. Saga. The road to this point on my channel for Dragon Ball has been just absolutely incredible, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys, but if you could, stick around to the end of the video for a special message from me. And without further ado, as always, I just want to say that this video is perfect for anyone who may have already watched the Piccolo Jr. Saga and just wants a refresher course. It's also good for someone who hasn't seen Dragon Ball and just wants this saga summarized for them. Or lastly, maybe you just want to come hang out with the old ChazmaN for a bit and listen to some nerd talk about Dragon Ball. Finally, here is your spoiler warning, and let's go ahead and get right into my summary review for the Piccolo Jr. Saga in Dragon Ball.
Last time on Dragon Ball.
At the very end of the King Piccolo saga, where we left off was seeing King Piccolo totally hinder Goku's movement, completely putting him at a disadvantage, and allowing King Piccolo to descend from the air in an attempt to kill Goku once and for all. Goku, in a last-ditch effort, propels himself up into the sky, and with all of his might, Superman punches a hole straight through King Piccolo's chest. King Piccolo, within his last few moments, spits off a mysterious egg off into the distance, and declares to his son that he'd get revenge and destroy all of his enemies. After the battle, Goku in his fatigued state gets picked up by Yajirobe, and the two of them begin to make their way towards Korin Tower to heal all of Goku's wounds, thus getting us up to date and delivering us to the beginning of the Piccolo Jr. Saga. Bulma and the rest of Goku's friends finally arrive at the battlefield, only to find a battered and bruised Tien carrying Goku's power pole. After nursing Tien back up just a bit, he tells the group of Goku's amazing victory, and Bulma of course can't help herself and immediately gets on the radio with one of the local news stations over at East City and tells them of the current events. The news of King Piccolo's demise sends East City, nay sends the world, into a happiness frenzy, creating a really good feel-good celebratory scene in this very first episode of the Piccolo Jr. Saga, Dragon Ball Episode 123, Lost and Found. Alternatively, far off into the distance deep within the mountains, there, floating along, lies an egg full of hate and revenge, desiring only one thing as it interrupts an elderly couple's comically large TV time. Piccolo Jr., the spawn of King Piccolo, desires the downfall and defeat of Goku, as well as the destruction of any who get in his way of completing his father's goals. After short work from a senzu bean, Goku is returned to normal, and after a bit of sulking on their situation, due to the fact that King Piccolo destroyed the Dragon Balls, thus preventing Goku from wishing his friends back, Korin conveniently remembers that the creator of the Dragon Balls happens to live right above him. Kami, the creator of the Dragon Balls, resides floating far above Korin's tower, but unfortunately for Goku, no form of travel can work other than using Goku's power pole, which acts as transportation to the floating structure. Goku then next remembers that he lost his power pole in his fight with King Piccolo, and retraces his steps back to the battlefield. Doing this, though, brings him into contact with some media members, who of course want to talk to the world savior, but Goku of course cares not for what they want, and immediately thinks of going to Baba to see if she could tell him where the power pole is. Baba points him towards Master Roshi's house, and after frantically rushing there, he finds Launch using it as a makeshift mop in the bathroom, then begins to make his way back towards Korin's tower. All of this ending the first episode of the Piccolo Jr. Saga on a high note. Oh wait, I think I forgot the part where baby Piccolo sets fire to the old couple's house. Alright, so maybe not on a high note.
This is just the start. I'll get Goku. He's all mine. I'll have my revenge.
Okay, so there was everything that happened within the first episode of the Piccolo Jr. Saga, and I know all of that was pretty long-winded, but I can promise you from here on out I will speed things up and primarily only touch on what's important, and leave out the majority of the filler. Now, before we continue, let's go ahead and touch on a few of the most important things to come out of the first episode, because we do have a few very interesting tidbits. Something extremely curious that Korin brings up during his conversation with Goku up in the tower is he remarks that he finally understands now how Goku was able to beat someone of the liking of Piccolo. He claims Goku's ability to heal from injuries is truly remarkable, and this visual almost seems to perplex Goku's master Korin, setting up for possibly something very interesting down the line. In his same conversation with Korin, Goku is given the history of his incredible power pole. In essence, Korin tells him that Korin once owned the pole, but handed it down to Master Roshi upon his request, and Roshi later would hand it down to Goku's grandpa Gohan. Originally, the pole was created to take its owner from Korin's tower up to Kami's temple, but with it basically being an indestructible weapon, it only makes sense that Goku would have used it as so when he was given it from his grandpa Gohan. We also learned from Korin of the creator of the Dragonballs, Kami, who lives high above Korin's tower in his own temple. And finally, we see the destructive power of Piccolo Jr., or Baby Piccolo as I like to call him. His theatrics with a poor elderly couple out in the middle of the woods, unfortunately for me, is pretty entertaining. Luckily, it appears he does not harm them. And with that, let's go ahead and continue on with the summary. And here we go, episode 124, Temple Above the Clouds. Upon Goku's return with his power pole, Korin then instructs him to follow him to the rooftop and insert his pole into the hole at the top of the structure. Just before taking off though, Korin hands Goku a single bell and tells him that only someone wielding the bell can meet Kami. Goku of course really doesn't seem to think on it long and begins his ascent. During his journey upwards, he finds himself within a giant storm and gets hit by multiple lightning strikes in what kind of becomes a common occurrence in this saga, and you'll find out why just here in a bit. Once departing the storm and making his way up the structure, our hero finds a very wide open space and approaches a very polite and calm being who is known as Mr.Popo. Mr.Popo immediately tells Goku that he knows of him and his feats, and requests proof that Goku is worthy of meeting Kami. Once shown the evidence, Popo tells Goku that the test is about to begin, and this test entails a battle with Popo to see Kami. Goku, full of confidence and bluster, expects to totally win the fight, but is immediately astonished by the incredible speed and power that Popo has. He ultimately finds himself against a great adversary. Continuing on, this episode moves us into episode 125, Earth's Guardian Emerges. After numerous attempts at beating Mr. Popo and failing after each and every one of them, Popo eventually turns away Goku and tells him to go home. Goku, on the other hand, being the great hero that he is, asks instead if Mr. Popo would be willing to train him so that he may someday defeat him and fulfill his mission of getting to meet Kami. When training with Popo, Goku is pretty often perplexed and very much confused almost 100% of the time by Popo's advice. So rather than me explain exactly what the training entails, I'm gonna let Popo tell you himself.
The answer is the same reason why you couldn't see me moving. You're only using your eyes to see. True sight requires all your senses, my young friend. Feel the movements of the air around me, and then you'll be able to see me.
So I've got to see without my eyes, and be like sky and lightning? That's a lot of stuff. No wonder you keep beating me.
It's at this time that Mr. Popo requests Goku to present the bell that he was given from Master Korin, and he tells Goku that his training won't be complete until he's able to move around and fight with the bell not moving and making a sound. All of this requiring many years of training, and Mr. Popo pretty much giving an ultimatum that Goku must stay and learn for however long it takes. Goku agrees to the conditions, saying he's willing to do whatever it takes to bring his friends back, and this causes the aged voice of the Earth's Guardian to emerge from the shadows. The voice of the Earth's Guardian says that he would now like to meet with Goku, and this creates one of the more shocking and memorable scenes in all of Dragon Ball and the Piccolo Jr. saga. As it turns out, the figure that eventually presents himself to Goku turns out has an absolutely striking resemblance to King Piccolo himself, and this causes Goku to become enraged and to attack. Once Goku is subdued, the Guardian of the Earth, Kami, begins to explain the reasoning for all of this mistaken identity, and the reasoning is, dun dun dun, Kami is King Piccolo, and King Piccolo is Kami. Essentially, at one point the two beings were one, But Kami at the time, knowing that the current Guardian of the Earth's status at that position was coming to an end, made the trek upwards and looked to take over his position. The current Guardian at the time would turn his back on Kami though, and in his great wisdom saw a side within Kami that Kami was too proud to see himself.
You see, a Guardian's motives must be pure, yet in me was a selfish desire for its power and control. A side that thrived on bitterness and hate.
Essentially, after many years of meditation and training, Kami at some point was able to separate the two personalities and drive out his impure desires. He would win over his former master and take over as the Guardian of the Earth up in the Lookout, and Piccolo would head downwards and begin his evil ways. Finally, episode 125 ends with Goku asking Kami if he could bring all of his friends back, and Kami unfortunately tells him that he cannot, but he does have the power to bring back the Eternal Dragon and restore the Dragonballs. This revelation of course delights Goku, and that revelation takes us into episode 126, Eternal Dragon Resurrected. Something learned at the very beginning of this episode is exactly where the Eternal Dragon's power comes from. His being resides in a miniature statue that is encased within glass, and when he was destroyed by King Piccolo, the statue crumbled and broke into pieces. With some time, effort, and just a little bit of glue, Popo manages to put the statue back together, and with the help of Kami and his guardian powers, a point of his finger is all it takes to breathe new life into the Eternal Dragon. Goku, with the idea, propositions that maybe perhaps he would like to go back and see his friends get revitalized, but Kami pretty sternly reminds him not to forget about his promise to stay and train for 3 years, and that not to worry, he'll get to see his friends at the next World's Martial Arts Tournament. Kami then throws one last revelation at Goku, and that is Goku will not be alone at the next World's Martial Arts Tournament. Piccolo, or Piccolo Jr., will be there to challenge him, and he will be out for blood. With learning of these events, Goku is quite visibly reinvigorated and motivated, and deep down after following Goku throughout his entire journey through Dragon Ball, you know he is excited beyond belief. Meanwhile, privately beyond Goku's ears, Kami reveals to Popo his reasoning behind getting Goku to do what he cannot.
Kami, you and Piccolo are one entity, right? So if Goku kills him, he will, I guess, kill you as well?
That is correct. I have brought all this on myself. No entity can strangle himself with his own hand. But I finally found a way to rid the world of the horrors I have caused. I know this won't be easy, Mr. Popo, but you must carry on without me until another guardian can be found.
In the middle of all of this major information dump going on at Kami's Lookout, our friends back at Master Roshi's house see a startling image. The Dragon Balls that before were but stone are now glimmering and all shiny, and the group with great excitement call forth the almighty Shenron with the intent of reviving all of their friends. In their curiosity, they essentially learn from the dragon everything that we already know. Kami, at Goku's request, revitalized the Dragon Balls, and Goku is currently training with Kami at Kami's Lookout, and he will be rejoined with his friends in 3 years at the next World's Martial Arts Tournament. Next up, Bulma makes their request known to the dragon to bring back all of their friends who have been killed by King Piccolo, and Yamcha just after adds an adjustment to it. He requests that the dragon revive everyone killed by King Piccolo, and after a moment of mild tension, the dragon makes it known that it is possible. Their wish has been granted. What comes next is a super great reunion scene between all of Goku's friends, as well as more heartwarming moments of Goku's current allies and adversaries being brought back as well. After their revitalization, Goku's friends become really motivated after learning about who he's currently training with, and they all immediately begin another round of training with Master Roshi. And that brings episode number 126 to an end, Eternal Dragon Resurrected. Okay, so you know it had to happen, but this is the point where, in my opinion, I feel like we start to encounter some filler within this saga. So this means that the next 6 episodes I'm going to totally blast through and just give you guys the overall what happened. Episode 127, Quicker Than Lightning, continues on with Goku's training and follows him learning the importance of not trusting his eyes, but using his senses to feel the air around him. This lesson is furthered with Goku going into a teleporter and being teleported to an area called Mount Rumble, Within this area, he must use his abilities that he has not yet to learn to gain a crown without being struck by lightning, which again is the second time that Goku has had to do something that involves lightning, as I mentioned earlier in this video. This episode does lean into episode 128, Secret of the Woods. Goku somehow gets returned to the Lookout after being struck by lightning, but Mr.Popo sends him once again on another mission and teleports him into the woods without really telling him much. He stumbles across a large, friendly, and humorous family that's really funny and very much leans into Toriyama's Mr. Slump personality and origins. Goku eventually meets the family's grandfather at a local river, and during some easy fishing he learns once again about using his senses and captures a few fish along the way. Next on, episode 129, The Time Room, is pretty much what you'd expect. Popo sends Goku back in time, at a period when Master Roshi and Master Shen were still being trained back under Master Mutaito. Pretty much the gist of this episode is Master Roshi and Shen trying to win over the affection of a lady by the name of Fan Fan, of which, now that I think about it, you don't ever find out whatever happens to her after this, but oh well. Essentially, this episode is all about Master Mutaito teaching Goku about the importance of using spiritual energy, and Goku ends up using said energy to help out Master Roshi and save Fan Fan from Master Shen. And from there, we head into episode 130, Goku's Doll. Within this episode, Mr. Popo takes but a pluck of Goku's hair and creates his ultimate opponent. Throughout most of this episode, Goku spends his time fighting a clone of himself and has to learn to throw out all of his negative thoughts and empty his mind and just react, because the clone knows what he's going to do. In the end, Goku gains an edge on the doll and thinks he has it defeated, but Popo reveals that the doll just ran out of life energy, meaning Goku's lesson comes to an end. Additionally, a side plot happening during this episode is Goku's friends attempting to make their way towards Korin's tower to attempt to learn what he has already learned, kind of adding to their training. The following two episodes, episodes 131, Walking Their Own Ways, and episode 132, Hotter Than Lava, might very well be my least favorite two-episode stretch out of the bunch. These episodes show a side plot of Tien and the gang continuing on along their journey towards Korin's tower and encountering a pretty welcoming village that finds itself in some pretty deep peril due to a local volcano that erupts. Our heroes are able to redirect the lava from the volcano into another direction, saving the village, and episode 132 ends with us knowing Goku and his friends are all training and ultimately preparing for the epic conclusion of the Piccolo Jr. saga. Alright, well here we are, we've made it. We are now at, in my opinion, what is the meat and potatoes of the Piccolo Jr. saga, episode 133, Changes. This episode sees us 3 years into the future, and shoots us immediately towards the location of the World's Martial Arts Tournament, or Tenkaichi Budokai. We join Master Roshi at launch as, one by one, each of our heroes begin to make their entrances, starting off with Bulma, Puar, and Oolong, which makes Master Roshi really happy, or... Now I know I've probably said it before, but what comes next is another one of those most memorable scenes in all of Dragon Ball type things, as a pretty tall and fairly familiar looking individual helps a little girl get her balloon.
Master Roshi, I'm pleased to see you again. All of you are looking well.
You can't be! No way!
Eh, Goku? Oh! What? Of course it's me. Who else would I be?
After a really heartfelt exchange between Goku and the group, they continue to wait on Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu, and Krillin, and things begin to feel pretty dicey with the final call for admittance into the tournament is almost at its end. As you would expect, before the final buzzer, the rest of the group shows up in a very expedited fashion, and after signing up, Krillin finally has his moment to thank Goku for bringing him back, while during this, Goku's change of appearance leaves Yamcha and Tien very curious about Goku's new abilities that he's learned over the years. As Goku and the gang turn in for the night, eagerly anticipating their soon-to-be-upon-them tournament, there is but another that also arrives to the festivities, and he too appears to have matured quite a bit. The end of episode 133 sees us until the next day when the preliminary round is about to go underway, and we get a really cool scene of Master Roshi telling his pupils that they have learned everything that they can from him, and that they are now free to wear whatever they like, for they have outgrown his teachings. This message from their master, though, kind of falls on deaf ears as Goku, Krillin, and Yamcha decide to continue wearing their orange-themed Turtle Hermit outfits. Very much, once again, showing their appreciation and respect for their master Roshi. While everyone is waiting for the preliminary round to begin, Yamcha and Krillin ask Goku what had happened to his tail, but their conversation is interrupted by Piccolo Jr. and a really intense stare-down begins. As Piccolo Jr. departs, Goku requests that Tien and Chaozu please not tell Yamcha and Krillin who that was, for it may cause them to get angry and possibly do something dumb. So I guess Goku's request does kind of make sense, but come on, we all know they're just building up the drama. What comes next in this episode 134, Preliminary Peril, is a super interesting interaction between Goku and a beautiful young lady who seems to know Goku, but Goku can't seem to recall her himself, and also doesn't seem to notice her affection. This lack of complete awareness throws the girl into a fit, and she storms off in a more frightening way than even Piccolo Jr. did. All of this leaving Goku's friends wondering just what exactly he's been up to the last few years. Well, it's time. All of the reunions and well-wishes are behind us, and all that lies ahead is the ultimate prize. The title of World's Martial Arts Champion is to be determined now. In almost the exact same fashion as the previous tournament, when drawing numbers, Tien has Chaozu essentially determine the order and placement of where all of the combatants will be fighting in, very much wanting to dictate matchups, and essentially ensure that all of the best fighters make it up until the end, most definitely making everything more interesting. Luckily or unluckily for Goku, he's called up and is the very first fight of the preliminaries. And wouldn't you know, he's matched up once again with one of his former adversaries and a former World's Martial Arts Champion himself, the great King Choppa. This first fight, dubbed by Krillin as possibly a fantastic example of just how far Goku's training has brought him, and starts off with Choppa seemingly being very intimidated by Goku's clear mind, as quoted by Tien and Yamcha. Goku's perfect defensive stance also, in my opinion, I think adds to part of the reason why Choppa is so intimidated. In the end though, this fight ends up being pretty much a cakewalk for Goku, as he disbands Choppa with a single chop to his back. As we continue on with more fights involving many of our friends, just about all of them seem to have relatively easy times with their fights, including the mysterious woman who was talking to Goku earlier, and a mysteriously masked rotund man. The ease at which the fight's taking place, though, for the crew, comes to a sudden halt as Chaozu is dispatched rather violently by an old foe. That's right, the terrible Mercenary Tao is back from the dead, and out seeking revenge for what has been done to him, and his brother Master Shen. Mercenary Tao explains here how he avoided death.
Mercenary Tao died! How is this possible?
With a good imagination and a lot of zenny, there is life after death, but it's not cheap. It took a while for me to get my parts in order, but here I am. The world's first fully functioning cyborg assassin.
Moving on into episode 135, Battle of the Eight, we start off seeing more montages of every character we know, continuing on and winning more fights, and then at a point we see and get introduced to a brand new character, one that I actually personally thoroughly enjoy, and very much think adds quite a bit of humor to this saga. His name is Hero, and his awkward clumsiness really knows no end. His introduction sees him rushing out of the restroom, late for his match, and even once in the ring, he, well, yeah.
Sir, your zipper.
In what appears to be a stroke of luck, Hero accidentally trips and falls, knocking out the masked rotund man in the process, who later on unmasks himself, revealing it to be Yajirobe, who I believe was just wanting to kind of check in on Goku and see what his tournament was all about. After the ring announcer has a bit of a moment seeing Krillin alive, this due to the fact that the last time he saw Krillin was murdered in years past, we get to finally learn and see the drawing of the final matchups for the semifinals, and man oh man do we have some bangers. To start things off, we get Mercenary Tao versus his brother's former Padawan or student, Will Mercenary Tao get his revenge on Tien for turning his back on his teacher? Match number 2 sees Goku versus the mysterious woman, who prior was very angry at him. What is the reasoning behind why this girl is so angry, and how exactly are her and Goku tied? We'll find out. The third match pits Junior versus Krillin, whom as viewers we all know to actually be Piccolo Jr., and that knowledge leads us to wonder just how powerful is Junior, and can Krillin last long enough or even maybe just survive? And the final match is Yamcha versus Hero. Is this finally the moment where Hero's clumsiness and overall dumb luck runs out? Surely one of Master Roshi's fine students could never lose to just some ordinary elderly citizen? Finally, with everything set up, the tournament is underway. We start out with possibly one of the more interesting fights in my opinion for the opening rounds. And this episode 136 is aptly named Tien Shenron versus Mercenary Tao. What else? Now, I'll very much admit that this fight is incredibly short, but does not lack drama. The constant threats from Mercenary Tao towards Tien are very consistently entertaining. Additionally, Master Shen's presence within the crowd also serves as a pretty fun distraction for Tien. Well, fun on our side.
Use of a match to bring you this little bulletin. You cannot defeat my brother Tao because he's the one who taught you defensive strategy. A shame all that knowledge was wasted on a loser like you.
Within this match, Tao is really never able to even get a hit on Tien. And at a point, Tien very courteously attempts to walk Tao out of the ring, with the goal of not hurting one of his former teachers, and also not wanting to embarrass him in front of a large crowd, considering I believe he knows he's so much more powerful than Tao at this point. Tao is able to break free from Tien though, and generates a knife from his wrist. Then with a gigantic slash, he cuts Tien across the chest, resulting in Mercenary Tao being disqualified from the match and the tournament, for basically brandishing a weapon, which is against the tournament rules. As you would expect, Mercenary Tao cares not though for his disqualification, and continues on with attempting to kill Tien, trying to achieve his goal of revenge. Unfortunately for Tao, he fails in his attempt at murder, and has his blade broken by Tien. Feeling as though his back is pushed up against the wall, Tao decides to use his ultimate weapon. No, not his ponytail. He uses an attack he calls the Super Dodon Wave, an upgraded version of one of his former attacks. After targeting Tien and charging up his Dodon Wave, Tao fires on Tien in what seemingly seems like a death blow. But once the dust settles, Tien reappears unharmed, surprising everyone including Tao. Tien's awesome survival of such an outrageous attack basically kind of shocks Tao, and in his surprise he's wide open for an attack by Tien. With no time wasted, Tao's defeat is delivered with one blow, and for Tien it's not necessarily a happy moment. He doesn't really seem to really bask in his win. Instead, he picks up Tao, brings him to his brother, Shen, and tells them he better never see them again. In a sort of somber manner, Tien exits the ring, and Master Roshi here kind of perfectly describes Tien's temperament, and where he is as a fighter and person.
Amazing. I never thought Tien would grow into such a well-tempered and powerful warrior. There is nothing more that this master can teach him.
Continuing on, we move over into the second match, and this entails Goku versus the mysterious girl who claims to know Goku but is holding a gripe against him for him not remembering her. The announcer then makes it known that the girl would like to be known as Anonymous, very much liking to keep her identity a secret, and then we move on into episode 137 and get this fight going. Anonymous starts the fight out very quickly, rapidly rushing in. She very much at the opening takes the fight straight to Goku. Throughout a lot of the fight, she badgers Goku about him not remembering, and mentions pretty consistently something about a promise, and Goku of course says he doesn't remember making any promises to anybody. Master Roshi also into the fight mentions just how good of a fighter she is, saying that many of her moves resemble that of the Turtle Hermit school. During a pause in the fighting, Goku is able to get her to finally tell him what exactly his promise was, and it very much shocks everyone in the crowd.
You said that I would be your bride! You promised to marry me!
Say what?
Goku, as you would expect, has no idea what a bride is, and understands absolutely no aspect of the idea of a marriage. Finally, he tells Anonymous how could it be possible that the two of them could live together considering he doesn't know her name, this causing her to put forth a challenge to Goku. If he beats her, she'll tell him her name. Goku, of course, with his ultra competitiveness, takes her challenge truly to heart and hits her with an air punch, sending her flying out of the ring. Being declared the victor, Goku goes to check on her and receive his reward of knowledge. It's then revealed that she is the Ox King's daughter, Chi-Chi, and everything begins to fall into place. Goku then next admits to Chi-Chi that his promises when they were young were just something that he didn't understand and he thought she was talking about food. Then in shocking fashion, the great fighter Goku transitions from world's greatest fighter to world's biggest romantic, and asks Chi-Chi to marry him. An absolutely incredible and endearing moment for Goku, right? I think this is going to warm up Piccolo Jr.'s heart and possibly make him forget his quest for revenge and not want to rule the world and kill all of humanity. No? No? Too much to ask for? Moving on, once again, we see another ridiculously short fight, but it doesn't lack in mystery, as it's our first time of getting to see Piccolo Jr. in action. Be careful, Krillin, this is no ordinary opponent. After being rudely called a loser, Krillin decides to be the aggressor and takes the fight to Piccolo. He fires 2 energy attacks towards Piccolo, of which Piccolo is able to dodge, but unfortunately for the Green Menace, the attacks are able to track him and surprise him from behind. In Piccolo's shock, he stops the blast from hitting him, but doing this leaves him wide open for a direct punch to the face from Krillin. After a ridiculously quick recovery, Piccolo launches a counterattack in his own way, launching Krillin towards the outside of the ring. Krillin, to the chagrin of Piccolo though, shows that he's learned a thing or two during his training, and shows off his new flight skills, no doubtedly learned from Tien and Chaozu. With Krillin's impressive display up to this point, Piccolo feels the need to address Krillin and issue a warning.
Forgive my bias. I see now that I can afford to show you a little.
What do you mean? A little of what?
My real power, unrestrained.
Once Junior decides to take it up a notch within the battle, the fight begins to sway pretty heavily into his favor, and he definitely begins to get a leg up on the situation. Well, maybe not his own leg. After showing off his never-before-seen stretchy abilities, Krillin realizes he has only one chance left to defeat Piccolo, and uses a surprise Kamehameha wave, but unfortunately Piccolo Jr. is too smart for that, and ends up giving Krillin a big old bonk on the head. The attack is so strong and powerful that it sends Krillin spiraling back towards the arena, and taking a pretty significant amount of damage. With Piccolo having claimed that he was using a fair amount of his actual abilities, he expects that the hit that he dealt Krillin would have killed him, or at least hurt him really badly, but to his surprise and to the surprise of everyone witnessing, Krillin is able to stand on his own 2 feet, only to fall back and declare that he essentially cannot continue. So yes, Piccolo does win the match, but in terms of who wins the sentimental battle, well, Krillin does that, and his toughness and bravery also succeeds in making Piccolo think twice about just how easy it's going to be to dominate the Earth. This next fight, same as the others, is fairly short, but absolutely does not lack in some pretty entertaining moments. The lead up to Yamcha versus the Mysterious Hero, of which happens to also be the name of this episode, 138 Mysterious Hero, is once again played up for laughs, as the character hero once again displays his incredible clumsiness, and is still wholly unable to gain really any real belief from the crowd that he can win. Yamcha at the very start is the heavy favorite, but right off the bat, in his clumsy but yet incredibly lucky ways, Hero is able to get in a few hits on Yamcha, of which are incredibly entertaining to everyone within the crowd, everyone except Goku, who appears to know or maybe even suspect something that no one else does about Hero. After honestly for me one of the more hilarious scenes in the saga, and perhaps most embarrassing for Yamcha, the fighter Hero has a bit of a change personality-wise.
Thanks, so are you ready for a surprise? Uh-huh. Watch.
Who are you?
In his anger and shame, Yamcha begins to try to turn things up a bit, and resorts to using one of his ultimate abilities, the Wolf Fang Fist. Unfortunately, to his surprise, once again, Hero is completely able to defend against all of his attacks, and continues landing critical hits. At a certain point in the fight, Hero almost begins to toy with his opponent, telling him that he is a far superior fighter to Yamcha, and that he could use some teaching. He next lets Yamcha in on a very interesting little secret. He is but a visitor and not from the area, more specifically the Earth. He exclaims that the body he is currently inhabiting is but a vessel, but yet Hero doesn't quite explain exactly what he is. Instead, he leaves Yamcha and Goku to believe he is but an alien, and before he can continue on, Yamcha interjects and decides to show off a brand new attack that he has been keeping dormant. It's called the Spirit Ball, and it is, what else? A ball generated from the spirit energy of its user. What makes this attack particularly interesting is the fact that it can be controlled by its user and pretty much just directed into any direction and follow someone all around a battlefield. Due to the unpredictability of this attack, Yamcha is able to surprise Hero and sneaks in a pretty considerable hit from down below the ring. Yamcha thinks his move is so destructive that he has the win, but Hero almost immediately recovers and knocks Yamcha out of the ring. After achieving his win, Hero and Yamcha have a very quick discussion, and both of them show an incredible amount of mutual respect. And as they are exiting the ring, Goku has an epiphany and realizes just who is inhabiting Hero.
Hero? Oh no! Ah! I know who he is. I've seen his true face. I should have known he'd find a way to be here.
With that revelation of Kami actually being Hero, the tournament is set to move to the next round, and these semifinals matchups are really good. In my opinion, at least the matchup for me that is the more intriguing is most definitely the rematch from the previous tournament's final. Tien versus Goku is the first fight to start off the semifinals, and both fighters are absolutely electrified and very much want to get this ball rolling. Right at the opening bell, these two opponents exchange attacks almost immediately, and then take to the air. After a heated exchange in the sky, the two combatants make their way once again back to ground level, and things begin to get really good, or at least everyone thinks it gets really good because no one can see the two adversaries as they are moving so incredibly fast. Human eyes can almost not even see their movement. With the fight almost at a perceived stalemate, to all but everyone but Master Roshi, who sees Goku as the far superior fighter, it leads us from episode 139, Rematch, and into episode 140, Goku Gains Speed. Now, I'll be totally honest, I don't really feel like this episode wholly is particularly engaging, but I do feel like there is one specific section that does provide some unique elements to this match. At a point, it does appear that Tien begins to get an advantage in the fight, and basically declares that there is one ability that Goku cannot keep up with him in, and that ability is Tien's speed. After displaying his major advantage in some pretty dazzling ways, Tien nearly knocks Goku out of the ring, and once again almost declares his victory. Before continuing on with the fight, Goku asks for just 1 minute, and begins to declothe. He starts by stripping himself of his undershirt, and very much appears to struggle heavily with that action. He then moves on to his boots, and finally, his wristbands. Krillin and Yamcha then enter the ring to help him recover his items, and then it is revealed to everyone that Goku basically was carrying around 140 kilos, which roughly translates to 308 pounds here in America. This insane training tactic is something Goku says was integral to Kami's training, and very much resembles some of the aspects that Roshi used when training Goku and Krillin himself. Goku, in a dazzling display of speed in his own right, pretty much shows off to Tien and the rest of the people in the crowd, and once he's finished warming up, the two fighters are ready to commence round 2. Tien, during a very specific exchange, learns very quickly just how much improved Goku's speed has become, and without knowing it under his nose, loses a rather essential piece to any pair of pants. And after a bit of shaming from the crowd after them seeing Tien's undergarments, he's gifted his belt from Goku, then makes a declaration.
What I have in mind isn't quite as destructive as the Tri-Beam, but it's enough.
I'm not worried. Try it.
You will not fend off this attack! My biggest mistake was assuming that my exceptional sight would be enough to catch your movements. These eyes have failed. So if 3 will not win me this fight, then I shall use 12! They will see you fall!
12 eyes?
Episode 141, The Four Faces of Tien, sees him perform an ability not seen before. And let's just say it has Goku seeing multiples. Tien basically splits himself up into 4 Shenron-like fighters, and pretty much plans to overwhelm Goku with outright numbers. During the fight, Yamcha very astutely identifies that this ability is not the afterimage technique, thus leads to Tien naming it quadruplication. Goku, now at this point being at a bit of a disadvantage, definitely gets knocked around a bit, but eventually gets one solid kick in, showing that Tien does not quite have it won just yet. At one point, the 4 Shenrons retreat to the 4 corners of the ring, and all fire upon Goku, forcing him up into the sky, where they fire upon him once again, this time making contact. Thinking that he has grasped victory, Tien and everyone else within the crowd is shocked when Goku hops right back up in all of his full enthusiastic glory, with almost no damage taken. Goku then almost goads Tien into attempting to try the same attack twice, then issues a little bit of advice.
There won't be a next time. You won't use the same trick again. I already found 2 weak spots in your strategy, Tien. I'll be fine.
Tien, seriously doubting Goku's prowess, attempts the same exact attack again, but this time when Goku takes to the air, he uses one of Tien's old attacks against him. The solar flare technique all but blinds Tien, leaving him open for an attack, but Goku holds off and for some reason does not push forward, explaining to Tien that that attack exposed one of his weaknesses. Then Goku exclaims that his second weakness is his largest and will ultimately cost Tien the match. Goku says that Tien's second weakness further negatively affects Tien's first weakness, and all of this began when Shenron decided to separate into 4. Next, Goku in a flash, one by one, begins dismantling each of the Tien clones, one after another, knocking each of them into a neat little pile on the side of the ring. While the victory does come quick, it still is at no loss for any dazzling moments, and visually is pretty entertaining through and through. The added dialogue between Goku and Tien showing their admiration and respect for one another also is a nice touch at the end of the episode, of which leaves us eager to see more of the menace Piccolo Jr. and to find out just exactly what he has in store for everyone. Speaking of which, that moves us into episode 142, Kami vs. Piccolo. Just before the next match at the beginning of this episode, we have a really interesting dialogue between Goku and Hero, which helps us further delve into the mindset of Kami and to what exactly he has planned.
You came to defeat Junior, didn't you? Why are you so interested in him?
Because he must be defeated and you can't do it. He is way out of your league.
No way! Are you sure?
Listen to me, Goku. Junior is a destroyer. He will annihilate you and the entire human race if he gets the chance. To defeat him, you must understand his mind, and as you know, we were once joined as one. As Popo told you, Junior and I are bound by the same fate. Even if you could destroy Junior, you would not for fear of killing me. Popo, he should not have told you this.
And with those particulars for Kami's involvement finally out in the open, Kami takes to the ring to take on Junior. Now this fight is most definitely one of the shorter ones in this entire saga. It only really encompasses about a little over 10 minutes of this episode, and to be completely honest, that's about all it really needs because there's only really one event within it that really carries any weight going into the finals. And with that, let's see what happens with the rest of this Piccolo-centric episode. The stare down for this fight is pretty incredible, with Hero's previously joyous, almost fun-loving nature completely depleted from his face. And Piccolo Jr. most definitely notices this seriousness from Hero. Hero then sends some stinging words towards Piccolo about his ambitions, thus informing to Piccolo that Hero really knows who he is. Following this, Hero decides to be the one to initiate the action, and lands the first opening blow to Piccolo. As the two then take to the air, Piccolo fires off a blast that luckily avoids land and hits into the ocean. Then the two fighters retreat back to the arena. After they exchange once more, Piccolo fires off another blast towards Hero that begins careening towards the crowd, but Hero takes it and redirects it upwards, saving many crowd members. Hero, while thinking to himself, accidentally gives away the idea that he is Kami actually inhabiting the body that he is in, and Piccolo was able to find this out by reading Kami's mind, of which Kami is not necessarily surprised by, leading to a really cool scene of the two Piccolos having a very interesting dialogue in their own language.
Reading minds is dirty business, Piccolo.
Huh? Did you really think you can fool me with that fragile disguise? What do you think you're doing here, Kami?
I'm sure my visit comes as no surprise to you. But then again, you were always a little slow.
At the tail end of the conversation, Piccolo downplays Kami's willingness to take out Piccolo once and for all, and Kami retorts that he must take down Piccolo by any means necessary. Backing up his very confident talk, Kami tells Piccolo that he has learned from the humans a way to get rid of Piccolo while also preserving his own life. So that's right, if you've been paying attention to anything Piccolo Saga related, you know that there's only one thing that terrifies the Green Menace, and that is the evil containment wave. Unfortunately for Kami though, in a very different turn of events unlike many of the moments where this move was used, Piccolo this time is so powerful that he's able to reverse the attack and send it right back towards Kami. Just before being swallowed up, Kami decides to spare the unfortunate being that he was inhabiting, saving him from possibly a lifetime within the bottle, or quite possibly some sort of total destruction of Piccolo. Of which, now that I think about it, Kami had better be right that Goku defeats Piccolo, because if not, it might actually be safer to be within that bottle, considering if Piccolo wins, he will dominate the earth and quite possibly kill every human. There's a random thought from the ChazmaN, I guess. Next, in a flash with Kami contained, Piccolo closes up the bottle and takes a moment to stare at Goku, almost gloating at him and the rest of the game. Finally, oh boy, here we are, the epic conclusion of the Piccolo Jr. saga. All of it starting off with this next episode, episode 143, Battle for the Future. Now once again, just for time's sake for this summary review video, the last match of the tournament between Goku and Piccolo Jr. takes up a whopping 6 episodes. So once again, I'm going to try and touch on everything important that I can, but just know that I'm going to try and wrap it up all neatly for you. The episode begins with Piccolo exiting the ring, but before he can make his way out, Goku demands that Piccolo hand him over the bottle. This, of course, as you would expect, is a request that Piccolo cannot abide by, and as he's handing the bottle over to Goku, it somehow slips out of Piccolo's hands and right down his throat. I know, right? Quite clumsy of him. With Piccolo out of their sight, Roshi finds the group, and following up next is a very dramatic scene between Goku and his friends, where Goku essentially tells them that Piccolo Jr. is King Piccolo, and he gets them up to date as to all of the events that led up to this. During this scene for me, there's a really funny part where Piccolo is actually listening in to Goku's entire story, then has a bit of an exchange with Goku where he's almost allowing King Piccolo to talk through him, almost like a three-way conversation, which is kind of funny and cool to see Goku interacting with King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. And with the conversation over, the finale is ready to begin. The announcer calls the two finalists towards the arena, and the stakes for Goku feel quite high. Without saying, there's quite a bit of pressure on him. In a flash, moments later, the fight begins, and the two fighters almost immediately begin furiously attacking one another. Towards the end of the episode, with an incredible attack, Piccolo does quite a bit of damage to Goku, and makes it seem like he's achieved an early victory. This cliffhanger takes us into episode 144, and leaves us to very much hope that this isn't the end to the fight. At the very beginning of this episode, the suspense as to Goku's status is ended pretty quickly as he hops right back up, pretending to have been down for the count. After a brief moment of the two fighters charging up, they continue their battle, and then at a point Piccolo takes to the air. Frustrated beyond belief, Junior prepares to fire off an attack that could do some serious harm. Goku, in an attempt to protect the crowd, tells everyone to take cover, and then in a last-ditch effort he jumps into the air in an attempt to draw Piccolo's aim away from the crowd, a move in which for him is successful, but it does see them have to sacrifice a mountain. Additionally, the disaster of this event is also the first time it appears that many people in the crowd are actually worried about their safety, causing many people to ditch the event. As a response to Piccolo's aggression, Goku announces he's about to use a new attack, something he calls the Super Kamehameha Wave. Unfortunately for us as the viewers though, Goku is talked out of it by Master Roshi, this due to the fact that by killing Piccolo, he also kills Kami. Now to immediately reverse that fortunately for us, Krillin talks Goku back into doing the attack by telling him they can just revive Kami with the Dragonballs. With this added inspiration and knowledge, Goku finally decides to counter Piccolo's attack, leading to a pretty great scene between the two combatants and their attacks colliding. As we move on to episode 145, Junior No More, I did just want to throw it out there that out of the 6 episodes that the Piccolo-Goku fight encompasses, in my opinion this next upcoming episode is probably the least interesting or relevant, I guess I should say, when it comes to this sequence of the saga. Again, it's most certainly not a bad episode, but out of the 6 for this fight, it's my least favorite, so let's get into it. As the smoke clears on the massive attacks, it becomes painfully clear that Goku did not succeed in destroying his enemy, and Piccolo does indeed survive the blast. As Piccolo makes his way back down to the arena, a really cool side effect of Goku's Kamehameha Wave is that it destroys Piccolo's head wrap, causing everyone in the crowd to finally be able to see him fully. With the entire audience speculating that he definitely does indeed look like King Piccolo, Piccolo then announces something to the crowd.
Silence, you worms! I am King Piccolo, reincarnated! Let it be known throughout the world. Once I've disposed of Goku, I will be your king once again!
With the entire area free of an audience, and the rest of the world now on notice that King Piccolo has returned, the only individuals left to witness this event is the rest of Goku and his friends. Junior tells Goku to not get his hopes up for this fight, and he can't wait to show him his next new technique. Piccolo's newest ability is quite sizable in nature, and I would venture to think it makes him feel quite grande in stature. Alright, that's enough big puns. So yes, Junior has made himself now the size of a very tall building, and for much of this episode really begins to wail on Goku. There does come a point where after quite a bit of dodging, Junior begins to get an edge on Goku, and Tien offers to give Goku some help. Help that of course Goku denies due to the fact that if he takes his help, he essentially forfeits the match. Something that the group is confused he still cares about, but hey, that's Goku. In a pretty great feat during the match, Goku is able to get Piccolo down on the ground, and then is able to essentially toss the giant, of which gives our hero quite a bit of confidence, leading to him poking Piccolo next in the eye. Thinking that he now has Junior wounded, Goku goes in for another attack, but unfortunately is hit by a laser beam from Piccolo, and then Junior decides to put his foot down. To Junior's dismay, this doesn't really go well for him though, as Goku is able to fight him off and toss him again. Episode 145 comes to a close with Piccolo once again making himself even larger in what seems like an almost insurmountable roadblock for Goku. Episode 146, Goku's Trap. Now in a very similar fashion to the previous episode, this episode has a few very exciting moments, but is very dialogue heavy. Almost immediately at the beginning, Goku doesn't necessarily seem intimidated by Junior's rapid growth. Instead, he very quickly catapults himself into the air and performs a really cool Kamehameha wave, launching himself straight into the mouth of Junior. In what turns out to be an expertly crafted plan by Goku, he procures Kami's bottle from the depths of Piccolo and tosses it over towards Tien, who then releases the Guardian of the Earth. The introductions between Kami and Goku's group are kept ridiculously short, as Piccolo in the background, fully enraged, attacks Goku. I would most definitely say, in my opinion up to this point, the fighting here is some of my favorite looking in the saga. All this leading up to another really cool scene of our hero utilizing another Kamehameha wave, this time with his feet. After recovering from the attack from our hero, Junior, in a very unexpected turn after rushing Goku and attempting to hit him with a punch full bore, is met instead by Kami, who gets in the way and protects Goku. Kami next tells Goku that this is a fantastic time for them both to take on Piccolo together and save the world, but of course, as you know, Goku being Goku, he has different plans.
No, Kami, don't interfere! You can't! The tournament's not over yet! He's still my opponent! I can't win unless I defeat him by myself! Why are they talking? The entire planet could be destroyed if Junior isn't defeated! What is there to discuss?
Very little, I'm sure. A true warrior does not contemplate the fate of the world, only the strength of his enemy. For him, nothing exists beyond the battlefield. He only knows victory or defeat.
The episode concludes with Goku infuriating Piccolo due to his extreme confidence that he will win, and this causes Junior to fire a tracing energy blast that can basically follow Goku all around the arena. And thanks to some very quick thinking, Goku at about his fastest pace leads the attack all the way back to Junior, which makes solid contact. When the smoke settles in surprising fashion, Piccolo is actually pretty damaged from this attack and loses the use of one of his arms. Goku, thinking that he finally has the match won, attempts to dissuade Piccolo from continued fighting, but Junior in stunning fashion rips off his arm and immediately spurts out a new limb. It really is a super grotesque and interesting scene, and for me at least is super cool and definitely adds more to the lore of Piccolo and Kami and makes me just question exactly where these dudes came from. Closing out the episode, Piccolo gives himself a big old bear hug and appears to be charging up for some sort of major attack. Episode 147, Goku Hangs On. With our hero figuring out that Piccolo is essentially getting desperate, he begs his friends to leave the island and get away as far as they can, for Piccolo currently is absorbing all of the energy from everyone within his radius. Luckily for everyone, Tien, thinking quickly, using his Tri-Boom ability, creates a giant hole in the ground and rushes everyone in to take cover. With the moment at hand, Piccolo releases his attack, destroying almost everything on the island. As the Goku gang awaken and begin exiting the hole, they are greeted by an awesome sight. Goku has survived this incredible attack, which utterly shocks Piccolo. Goku, taking full advantage of Piccolo's shock, he advances and basically puts together his greatest offensive bombardment of this fight so far. All of this culminating with Goku thinking he has put Junior down with a direct hit from his Kamehameha wave. This episode begins to conclude with the announcer beginning a countdown to 10 and getting ready to officially announce Goku the winner, but there is an interruption.
And 1, 2, 9!
And oh my goodness, here we are, episode 148, titled The Victor. Judging from that title, you can venture to guess that this is probably the final episode for the fight between Goku and Piccolo. Picking up where we left off from the previous episode, Goku, now being very badly damaged, continues taking on much repeated abuse from Piccolo, who more specifically keeps on targeting Goku's now severely injured spot. Furthermore, Junior, seeking to inflict more pain upon Goku, breaks both of Goku's legs and renders his left arm useless. With Junior taking to the sky, preparing to finish off Goku once and for all, Kami turns to Tien and tells him that he must kill Kami, for it is the only way at this point now to defeat Piccolo. Initially, Tien is not necessarily too open to this action, but with some persuasion he is talked into it. Just before Tien can strike down Kami, Goku steps in once again, begging them not to do this. He can still win the fight. With Piccolo ready and the time being up, he fires what he thinks to be the last attack. The blast damages a pretty wide radius, and leads to Junior finally believing that he has Goku out of his way. Taking a few moments, he begins to gloat, and then turns his sights over to Goku's friends. As everyone is getting ready to deal with Junior, in the background behind him they can see something flying in fast. That's right, Goku has not been defeated just yet, and he headbutts Junior right in the midsection. The hit is so powerful that it knocks out Junior and sends him flying outside of whatever is remaining of the world's martial arts ring. And finally, by the rules of the tournament, Goku is now officially its champion.
The winner of the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament is Goku! All right! Fantastic! Yeah, you did it!
Yajirobe himself also, for some reason, emerges from the destruction of this fight, and luckily for Goku happens to be carrying a bag of sensu beans, of which of course Goku utilizes. With now being healed and refreshed, Goku takes his time to celebrate, but just before he's able to celebrate for too long, Kami makes the decision to try and eliminate Piccolo to help save the world, forcing Goku to step in. Kami, almost feeling shame and disappointment in himself for not only kind of being the origin of Piccolo's reign of evil on the planet, but also possibly making a few bad mistakes here or there and not fully believing in his pupil, gets a very nice pep talk from Goku and Master Roshi, who both try to uplift him as much as they can.
I've lost more than power. I've lost my perspective. I no longer deserve to govern this or any world.
How can you say such things when it was you who brought our world peace again? Not for your training, Goku would never have attained the level of skill he has now. Junior would have won, and if the Dragon Balls hadn't been forged, none of these young warriors would have ever met. And I can't begin to count the number of people who owe their lives to these kids. When their quest began, they were just children, but they soon grew into heroes. When the world needed saving, 8 kids answered the call. One ball. That's how it all began.
Goku, you're fortunate to have had such an excellent teacher.
In this final section of this episode, Goku once again does something kind of unthinkable and requests one more sensu bean from Yajirobe, which he then in turn gives it to Piccolo, completely rejuvenating him and kind of scaring the pants off of everyone. Goku then tells Junior his reasoning for not killing Piccolo is simply for Kami's sake. He also tells Piccolo that without a rival to fight, he wouldn't have much to do, and Piccolo fits that role just nicely. As you would expect, Piccolo does the whole evil villain talk and talks about how nothing has changed between them, and Goku can expect to see him very soon. Finally, the show concludes with Goku being offered the Protector of Earth job from Kami, then immediately turning him down, and him and Chi-Chi flying off into the Dragon Ball sunset. An almost immaculate and perfect in my opinion way to end this totally awesome series. Oh wait, did I say end? Because there's totally still 5 episodes left to go of the show. But honestly, to me, the last 5 episodes feel very much disconnected from the main body, I guess you could say, of this saga. With that said, I tell you what, I'm going to cover the very last section of this saga in a very different way than I've done up to this point, and I'm going to rapidly surmise my way through it. Because I'll be honest with you, this is probably my least favorite section of this entire saga. So, in essence, what happens during this last part is it's basically a side story of Goku and Chi-Chi's emergence into marriage, and the start of a life away from the craziness that has surrounded them both. Before all of this though, there is an interesting happening though, where after they return back to the Ox King's castle, Chi-Chi is gifted a wedding dress from the Ox King that has been passed down many generations and was originally worn by her mother on their wedding day. But as preparations for the wedding begin, intense raging flames take the castle, trapping the Ox King who was attempting to save Chi-Chi's dress. Now these flames are too intense for Goku to deal with, so they go see Baba to see if they can find the Banjo fan, which is something that was originally made to quell raging flames such as these. So to keep a long story short, they go on an adventure to find the Banjo fan, don't find it, then go on another adventure to build one, and then finally go on another adventure where they actually find the Banjo fan. But to their dismay, the Banjo fan does not work in putting out the flames of the castle. As it ends up turning out, the reason for the flames is that the Ox King's castle resides directly above something called the Magical Furnace, which from what I understand almost acts like a gateway into the afterlife, or the otherworld as they call it. Probably the only section about this part that I actually really like is the fact that Gohan, Goku's grandfather, acts as a protector of the furnace along with the actual caretaker, whose name is Tajoro, or Anin as she's actually called. This section is pretty cool for me because I kind of liked the aspect of Chi-Chi being able to finally be able to talk with Goku's grandfather Gohan. It definitely is a very cool scene to kind of get everyone getting to meet each other. At the episode's conclusion, all that basically is happening is that the furnace has a hole in it that needs to be patched, of which Anin helps Goku in doing so, which ends up saving the Ox King's castle from the flames. So there you go. Like I said, I didn't really want to touch on every single aspect of these 5 episodes, due to the fact that I wasn't totally invested in all of them. For me, these 5 episodes could have been enough for them to actually create its own separate movie, because I actually like how everything wraps up just after the Goku Piccolo fight. But I also will say that these last 5 episodes are not that much of a deterrent for me for the end section. I just kind of always stop watching whenever I go back through at the last Piccolo section. One true great delivery here though is a beautiful wedding, and a fantastic send-off for something called Dragon Ball Z. Ooh, I wonder what that is. Hey, what's going on everyone? EnteRChazmaN here, and I just want to say a special thank you to everyone who has enjoyed this series, or this video in particular. If you didn't know, Dragon Ball is one of my absolute favorite shows. It's something I've been watching for many years since I was a wee lad. And yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. Please don't let these series and these videos, though, I will say, prevent you from watching Dragon Ball. It's absolutely one of my favorite shows, and I absolutely recommend you go and watch it. Maybe perhaps in some areas I've missed some context, or maybe didn't get something across as great or as funny as it could have been. So once again, I hope I didn't prevent you from watching it. All I meant to do was to provide some information and allow some people to get through some parts that maybe they don't, never got to. A big aspect to me doing this series is way back in the day when I was a kid, I always remember every time I would talk about Dragon Ball, or the people that didn't like it, where they would always go with the classic, oh, that show where fights last 10 episodes, and they're true in some parts when it comes to the DBZ portion. But again, that was the whole purpose of me doing this series, is just to, give somebody an easy way to move on to some of the other shows, or to give some context. But again, go watch it if you haven't. As for any future Dragon Ball projects, I just want to say I absolutely am going to move on to Dragon Ball Z at some point. I don't think I'm going to do it immediately because, well, I just finished this one. So I think I might like to allow this series to marinate a bit, maybe simmer. But definitely, if you guys want it badly enough, please do let me know down in the comments. And I definitely will get to it whenever I can. In the meantime, though, I do have my eyes set on some other anime that I am looking to perhaps do some videos on. Please send your recommendations down in the comments if you could. I do already have a few in mind that I think I would like to touch on, so keep an eye out for those. So yeah, overall, I just want to say thank you so much again for watching, and I hope you really enjoyed it, took some entertainment out of it, or it provided some sort of knowledge so you can move on to anything else. And if you could just for me, please like, share, and subscribe, or support the channel any way you can. If not, of course, just watching makes me about as happy as anyone on the planet, so thank you. Alrighty guys, well that will do it. Thank you so much. I'll see you again. Bye. Hey now, I see you made it through the video and liked or even possibly loved it. Well, if you want to see any more additional content or you'd like to get into contact with me, consider checking out some of my social medias right here. And if you'd like to go above and beyond and want to support my channel monetarily, here is also a couple places where you can do so. And if nothing else, simply liking, sharing, and subscribing would make me the happiest ChazmaN on the planet.